Morning, children. So what we discussed in previous class, separation of substances. Quick recap for this lesson. Already we discussed about the methods of separation of substances. That is what we have discussed: hand picking method, winnowing, and sedimentation and decantation, sieving and filtration. We discussed. So in hand picking method, the separation of rotten vegetables to fresh vegetables, many more examples I gave you. Removal of stones from the rice before cooking, isn't it? So many more examples I gave you. Dals, all the dals are mixed. By seeing the color and shape we can separate it out with the hand picking method. Winnowing method, the lighter particles will be separated from the heavier particles, is called winnowing method. That is rice and husk. Sedimentation and decantation also explained you. What is sedimentation? The heavier particles will settle down first, the lighter particles. These are called the sediment. You are taking the mixture of soil in the beaker and adding the water, and you shake it well, stir it well and keep it aside. After 2 hours, 3 hours, you will see the soil particles are in layers. Heavier particles will settle first, then lighter particles. This is what you call it, sedimentation. Now the soil particles are settled down. What you are getting? Clean water. How you will take out that clean water into the other vessel without disturbing? Slowly will take it out. That is called a decantation method. Sieving and filtration also explain you. From grinders, from the pindi girni, you will bring the flour, you will sieve it. So husk will remain on the sieve and the flour will be separated, isn't it? And what I explain you, that tea leaves. How you will separate the tea leaves from the tea? By using the strainer. Here this is a filtration method. In filtration method, what I explained you is muddy water. Very fine mud particles are there. How you will separate? By using a filter paper, you will separate. The undissolved particles will settle on the filter paper, is called residue, and the pure water collected in the beaker is called as a filtrate. Explain this also. Next, crystallization method also explained you. Salty water you are taking, you are adding the salt in the water and you are heating it. After some time the water starts evaporate, and what is left to be, when the water is fully completely evaporated from the beaker, what is left here is a salt. Crystals of salt is left here. So this is called a crystallization method. This method we use for separation of the salt from the seawater, isn't it? So this now another method of separation of substances is distillation. Distillation method. Another method of separation of substances is a distillation method. Here, distillation method of distilled water. How you get the distilled water? Germ-free water. No impurities will be there in the water. How you will get it? The water which in the hospitals they use for injection purposes, that is a distilled water only. They use the distilled water only. So doctors mix the powder, that is medicine, in the distilled water and they inject to the patient also, isn't it? So the water is called, this water is which they use is known as distilled water, germ free water. Now here what we have to do is, how you will get the distilled water? We need 2 conical flasks, glass tubes and 1 rubber tube and burner stand. These are the materials are required. Here take a stand, keep the conical flask on high. Take a stand. Here you are taking the stand. Here this is the stand you are taking. Here now conical flask. Place a conical flask on the stand. Place a conical flask on the stand with 1 hole rubber stopper. Take 1 hole rubber stopper here. Take 1 hole rubber stopper. here. Now here what you are taking is a tap water in this. You are taking in the conical flask a tap water. Keep up in one hole rubber stopper, keep a glass tube. Now another one. Another conical flask you are keeping in lower position. In the lower position, this is also fixed with the one hole rubber stopper. You are fixing here also with the one hole rubber stopper. In this you are taking the glass tube. Now these two glass tubes are connected with the rubber tube. You are connecting with the rubber tube. Here you have connected here with the rubber tube. This is what you call it, cord. It is called as a cord. This is what you call it, conical flask. It is called as a conical flask, isn't it? This is what you call it, glass tube. This is called glass tube. It is called as a glass tube. This is what you call it, burner. This is called as burner, isn't it? Now, this is a plastic tube or rubber tube. So, what is the apparatus we use here is what is the apparatus we are using here? We require two conical flasks, two glass tube, two rubber corks and burner and stand. These are the materials required for this experiment. Now, take the tap water in the conical flask which you are keeping on height. Understood? And fix the rubber stopper. One hole rubber stopper to this and one hole rubber stopper to this conical flask which you are keeping it down lower position. Connect this. Now fix up the glass tubes in this rubber stopper and these glass tubes are connected with the plastic tube. Now your material is ready, your apparatus is ready for experiment. Now what you have to do is heat the water which you are keeping on the height. Which water you are taking here? Tap water. Which water you are taking here? Tap water. Heat the water. After some time what happens? The water starts heating and it changes into vapor state. The water changes into vapor state, that droplets of water. What happens is the water is, so slowly this water changes into vapor state and it passes through this rubber tube and connected to the sides of the conical flask. Connected to the sides of the conical flask, isn't it? And so this water vapor turns into water slowly on cooling. It turns into water. The water which is collected in the second conical flask is a distilled water. Germ-free water you are getting here. Germ-free water you are getting here. It is free from impurities. So, what you are doing here, the conical flask which you are keeping on the height, what you are taking in this tap water. You are taking the tap water, when you are heating the water, what happens? It changes into vapor. And the water vapor passes through the rubber tube and it is collected in the second conical flask which you are keeping it in the lower position. And this water vapor, water droplets changes into water. And collected in the second conical flask. This is a distilled, the water which you are collected in the second conical flask is a distilled water. It is free from impurities. So it is free from impurities. All the impurities are killed by using the burner. Understood? So how you are getting the distilled water we have seen here. How we are getting the distilled water? You have seen here the distilled water we use for in hospitals, isn't it? In hospitals or other purposes, lab purposes, we use the distilled water. It is no impurities will be there in the distilled water. Thank you children. Have a nice day.